Am I audible? In the last class, we have seen machine instructions and addressing modes. We have started with addressing modes, right? Now we'll see about the addressing modes and ALU and data path. Okay. If there are any doubts in the last class, we can just ask me. If not, we can proceed. So in the last class, we have seen with students, do you have any doubts? Okay, then we can proceed with addressing modes. Right, what is addressing mode? A different way we can access the operands. That is called as addressing modes. So here this is a sender syntax. So this introduction we have seen, but anyhow I am recalling it now. Okay, if we are having opcode, then followed by the operands. The operands can be registers, memory, or IO ports. So basically we have three types of addressing modes, that is register, immediate and memory. Again it can be classified into implied, register, immediate, direct, indirect, index addressing, register relative addressing, based index addressing, relative based index addressing, string addressing mode, IO port addressing mode, program memory addressing mode. So that too in program memory if we are having direct, relative, indirect. Okay. Then intersegment and intra-segment. So if you are going to access within the segment, we call it as intra-segment addressing. We are going to access with other segments, then we call it as intersegment addressing. That too there will be having direct method and indirect method both. Right? So implied means will not be having any operands present. Right? The operands are specified implicitly in the instruction itself. Immediate means the operands will be part of the instruction. Immediately will be giving you can see with an example here. This is an example for immediate addressing mode. So here 26 is part of the instruction. So this is the data which has to be moved to the BL register. Alright. Implicit means instructions does not have any operand. Direct means CL, 9823, that is in this is the address location which has to be moved to the content in this location should be moved to the CL register. This is what direct addressing is. That means address will be part of the instruction, that is direct method. That means address will be in a register, then from that register the content has to be moved. So this is the example for register addressing, that is move the data between the registers PX and CX, PL and BL in that way and see. Indirect means in the registers it will be having the address, the content in that address has to be moved to the other register what is specified in the instruction. Right, then you have based index addressing. So indexing method. You have to calculate and then you have to move, you have to calculate the physical address by using the formula, you have to find the effective address. Then segment address into 10 plus effective address use the physical address. The content from that physical address has to be moved to AX. This is what index addressing method is. Then register relative addressing mode. You have register relative based index addressing mode, and then you have program memory addressing mode. In program memory addressing mode, you will be having direct program memory, then indirect program memory, and relative program memory. So jump to the address specified to that is direct program memory. Relative program memory means jump to the location specified. If it is 0 to now, from the current location, move to locations. This is what relative program memory. Indirect program memory means addresses there stored in the register. From that register, move the content to the go to that location is specified in the register. So here we are having few questions which is asked in the previous question papers, right? We'll be solving those questions. So here consider a processor with 64 registers and an instruction set of size 12. So be clear with it. We're going to consider a processor with 64 registers and an instruction set of size 12. Each register has 5 distinct fields. So each instruction has 5 distinct fields, namely opcode, 2 source register identifiers, 1 destination register identifier, and a 12-bit immediate value. So here each instruction has 5 fields. One is the opcode, other two other source registers. Then you have 1 destination register and a 12-bit immediate value. The 12-bit data is given. Each instruction must be stored in memory in a byte aligned fashion. If a program has 100 instructions, the amount of memory consumed by the program texts. So this is what asked in the question. What is the memory consumed if this is the program which has 100 instructions and each instruction has 5 distinct fields. Okay, keep this in mind. So here for opcode, first part is the opcode. So for opcode you will be having 4 bits. Then we have 3 registers, 2 source and 1 destination register. Each register occupies 6 bits. Right? Followed by that we have 12-bit immediate value. So 12 bits. So on the whole you will be having 4 plus 6 plus 6 plus 6 plus 12. So you will be having 34 bits together. Therefore one instruction size is 34 bits. So how many locations are required to store 34 bits? 34 bit means how many byte data it is? 34 by 8 if you put now you will be getting 4 point something. So we require approximately 5 bytes. We require 5 bytes of locations to store this 34 bits. So we require 5 locations to store this 5 bytes of data. So for each instruction we require 5 locations. So 5 into 100, since we are having 100 instructions, 5 into 100 will give you 500 bytes. So we are in need of 500 byte locations, 500 locations to store this program, which is of 100 into 5. Since we have 34 bits, we require 5 locations to store this 5 byte of data. So 5 location into 100 gives you 500 bytes. So this is what the answer for this question. In this way you have to try it out with some other cases given. But keep it in mind. For opcode we require 4 bit of data storage. For register 6 bits. Then depending upon the immediate value what is given, you can just substitute it. The next is, so this program we have seen in the last class itself, but there different questions are asked, but now here it is related with the memory location, right? So consider following program segment. Here R1, R2 and R3 are general purpose registers. Then we have the set of instructions given to move R1, 3000. Alright, so this instruction is of size 2 words, so it requires 2 words. So what does it states? The content and the location 3000 should be moved to the register R1. Right? Move R2, R3. So here this is an indirect method of addressing. So the address location is the address location is given in the register R3. The content in that location should be moved to the register R2. Right? First one is direct addressing. Second one is indirect addressing. Since it is in register R3 is given in bracket. If the bracket is not there, you can use this register addressing mode. So add R2, R1. That means The content of R1 is added with R2 and the result is stored in R2. To move R3, R2, that means the result, which is the addition result R2, result in the register R2 should be moved to the location given in register R3. Then increment the memory location R3, right? Decrement the R1 content. So now the content in R1 will be decremented. So then branch if it is not 0 to the loop specified. So if the decremented R1 value is not 0, go to the loop, repeat the process. Once R1 content becomes 0, come out of the loop, stop the program. This is what given. Go to the values which are assigned, that will also be given. Assume that the content of memory location 3000 is 10. That means R to the register R1, the value which is passed is 10. The content of register R3 is 2000. So in that 2000 location, we are having the data which has to be moved to register R2, right? The content of each of the memory locations from 2000 to 2010 is 100. That means for the consecutive locations, the data stored is 100. The program is loaded from the memory location 1000. So we are going to start loading the program from the location 1000. That is the origin address is 1000. All the numbers are in decimals, right? So this is what given. Assume that the memory is word addressable. The memory is word addressable. After the execution of this program, the content of memory location 2010 is, this is what the question is. The options are 100, 101, 102, 110. So what is the answer we have to find? We'll see with the steps how to proceed. Alright. So what is given initially? R1 value which is at the location 3000 is 10. So that means R1 value is decremented, right? So this loop will be executing 10 times. That is cleared by the first instruction itself. And the decrement instruction. So R1 is decremented. So the loop should execute for 10 times. The content in the register is, the content in the register is, register R3 is 2000. So 2000 is the memory location. So at that location, what is the value? From 2000 to 2010, the value given is 100. This is what we are going to use, right? When R1 value is 10, the memory address is 2000, right? So the memory address is 2000 here, right? Memory address is 2000. In 2000, we are having 100 value. The 100 plus R2 value is 100, R1 value is 10. So if we add 10 plus 100, now you'll be getting 110. That is the output which is stored for the first add instruction. Right. So here next step is move the 110 value to the register R3. Right. Now in R2 you are having the value 110. Move that to register the memory location which is stored in R3. Right. That means in 2000 now the value will be 110. R3 no, R3 is 2000 location. So in that location we had 100 before. Now after the addition, the result is stored in the same memory location. So now 2000 address location will be having the content as 110. That is what given in the first instruction. First step. So when R1 is equal to 10, memory address 2000. Before value it is 100. Now 100 plus 10 gives you 110. So that will be stored in the location 2000. The same step we will be following for the remaining decrement R1 content. So when R1 is decremented, its value is 9. Now if you add the content, R1 content plus R2, already in R2 we are having, in the location 2001 we are having 100. So 100 plus 9 gives you 109. So similarly repeat the steps. So you'll be having 100 8, 7, 6, 5, 104, 103, 2, right? So when R1 value is 1, R1 value is 1. At the MI location 2009, you are having 100, so 100 plus 1 gives you 101, so that result is stored in the location 2009. In the next step, R1 value becomes 0. So the loop breaks and it comes out of the loop. So at that time, what is the data which is stored in 2010 location? So there it is 100. So it is not affected, right? So up to 2010, we are having 100. So that is what given as the answer here. So the answer for this question is, it is 100. Right? So 100 is stored. The location 2010. So it is already stored, that there is no change in the content. So the answer is 100 here. So here the next question is, consider the following code sequence having 5 instructions. This one, I1 to I5. So they are having 5 instructions. I1 to I5, right? Each of these instructions has the following format: opcode, RI, RJ, and RK. So this is what the instruction format which is given. So where operation OP is performed on contents of register RJ and RK, and the result is stored in the register RI. So these are the source. RJ and RK are the source, right? And RI is the destination register. Right, the instruction sequence I1 to I5 is given, 5 instruction sequence is given. First part is the opcode part, next is the destination register, RG and RK are the source registers. Okay, so add R1, R2, R3. So this is what the first instruction is. So addition of R2 and R3 content is stored in the register R1. Okay, so next is multiply mul R7, R1, R2, sorry, R3. To multiply the content of R1 and R3. There is the previous result, that into R3, and result is stored in R7. Then next is subtract R4, R1, R5. The first result R1 and R5 value is subtracted, and the result is stored in R4. Okay, now add R3, R2, R4. That means R2 and R4 values are added, and the result is stored in R3. Mul R7, R8, R9. So multiplication of R8 and R9, the result will be stored in R7. So there are consequences here, right? So again we are getting R7 here, again we are getting R3 here. So we'll check it out what it is. Consider the following 3 statements. First statement is, there is an anti-dependence between instruction I2 and I5. Right. Second statement is, there is an anti-dependence between instructions I2 and I4. Within an instruction pipeline, an anti-dependence always creates one or more stalls. So now we are supposed to find which of the above statement is correct. Which of the above statement? Which one of the above statement is correct? We are supposed to find this one. First, going on to this. What is anti-dependence? What is anti-dependence? It is known as write after read. That sequence occurs and instruction requires the value that is later updated. So see here, R3 value is required here, but the result you are getting it here. So the result is R3 here, R2, R4, but that value is required here. We can just check it out in this way. Right, so what is given? For the first one, there is an anti-dependence between instructions I2 and I5. So is that statement right? I2 and I5, you check it out. I2 is multiply R7, R1, R3. I5 is R7, R8, R9. So here, is there any antidependence? Is the value required is not available? No. So these two instructions are right. So the first statement is wrong. Second statement is there is an antidependence between the instructions I2 and I4. You can check it out. I2 and I4. So you can check it out. I2 and I4. So R3 value is required here, but it is updated only at the I4 instruction. So also if one more statement is given, that is antidependence between instruction I1 and I4, that is also right. So here also we are in need of R3 statement, but since that statement is not given, here the given statement is I2 and I4. That is true because R3 value is required here, but it is later updated. This is what anti-dependency is. Right? Value is required, but that is updated later. So here R3 is later updated, but that is required here itself. Second instruction itself we require that one. So there is anti-dependency between instruction I2 and I4. So that statement alone is true. That is what given here. Within an instruction pipeline, an anti-dependence always creates one or more stalls. So here this can be removed by renaming the variables. So if you want now, we can rename the variables and remove this part. But here second one is right. There is an anti-dependency between instructions I2 and I4. That is right because I2 reads R3 and I4 writes it. So that is what the problem. So here only the statement S2 is right. Okay. This is an example. Find the mission cycle for a microcontroller if the crystal frequency given is 11.0592 MHz. Right, the crystal frequency is given. So for this, we are supposed to find the mission cycle period. So always keep it in mind. Mission cycle is number of cycles by frequency. Like we know time is 1 by frequency. So here crystal frequency is given. Right, so with this you can find the time. Alright, so time is 1 by f, so you'll be getting 90.42 nanoseconds. Then mission cycle period is the 12 into the time period gives you one mission cycle period. Otherwise, I can say the other way. Right, the required frequency is 1/12 of the crystal frequency. So 1/12 of the crystal frequency is the required frequency in the controller, right? So 11.0592 by 12, you will be getting 0.96, I think 0.96 megahertz. So, right, so that value is just inverted. That is the frequency, right? To obtain the time, just invert that value. So 1 by 11.0592 by 12 gives you the value, right? So you'll be getting 1.085 microseconds. You can do in this way or otherwise. Divide the crystal frequency, obtain the required frequency, then obtain the time from that frequency. So T is 1 by F inverted and then obtain the mission cycle period, that is 1.085 microseconds. So this is what an example to find mission cycle period. So next you have the program interrupt and sequences. Program interrupt. So what happens when interrupt is given? What is the need for the interrupts? So when the normal program is executing, if some abnormal conditions occur, so we have to move from that program to the subprogram to solve the abnormal conditions. So for this, we are in need of interrupts, right? which arises out of normal program sequence. So when the program interrupt is given, we'll be moving to the other subroutine instead of the executing the main program. So we can say program interrupts are used to transfer the program control from a currently running program to another service program as a result of an external or internal generated request. That's what an external source can require request for the interrupts, or internally by executing some conditions you'll be getting some flags affected, so that way we can generate the interrupts, right? Then if the interrupt occurs, then the control is passed to the subprogram or subroutine program, whatever we say. So after executing that part, the control returns to the original program after the service program is executed. This is what, in general, what a program interrupt is. Right? So types of control addressing modes. So we have PC relative addressing modes, base register addressing modes. So for PC relative addressing modes, we are in need of only one offset address. For base register addressing modes, we are in need of two segments. This base address as well as an offset address is required. Then types of interrupts. So we have, on the basis of masking, you'll be having maskable interrupts and non-maskable interrupts. So maskable interrupt can be a hardware or software interrupt, which can be masked for the future. With non-maskable interrupts, now it cannot be masked. Non-maskable interrupt is a hardware interrupt that standard interrupt masking techniques in the system cannot ignore. That means that interrupt cannot be masked. We cannot stop. We cannot disable the non-maskable interrupts. So this occurs to signal attention for non-recoverable hardware errors. Right? So this is what maskable. Non-maskable means we cannot stop. It occurs. Okay, this is not. It cannot be disabled. The interrupts on the basis of devices. We have external interrupt, internal interrupt, and software interrupts. The external interrupt means it comes from the I/O devices or from a timing device. Internal interrupt arise from illegal or erroneous use of an instruction or data. That's what. External and internal interrupts when the signals occur in the hardware of the CPU. Software interrupt is initiated by executing an instruction. We will be seeing few questions which is asked in the previous question papers. Number of basic cells in a 16 cross 4 RAM are. Right, what is the number of basic cells we have in the 16 plus 4 RAMs? Right, we are having 16 words. Each word is of 4-bit long. So 16 into 4 you'll be getting 64 binary cells. So this is the number of basic cells we have in 16 plus 4 RAM. The next topic is ALE and data path. Sorry, ALE data path, right? Few more problems we'll be seeing at the last in the addressing modes. Right, next is ALE data path. So here we can divide the CPU into data section and control section. Data section we call it as data path. So control section we call it as control unit. What is called as data path? Registers, ALU, and interconnecting bus all together we call it as data path. The registers, arithmetic and logic unit, and the interconnecting bus structures. So the bits in the data path is more or less functionally identical. So what is bus? Data bus, address bus, control bus. So these things we are having, right? Bus is collection of wires or distinct lines. So collection of wires or distinct lines we call it as bus. So to accommodate the data signals, we will be using data bus. It is used for transmission of the data. Number of data lines corresponds to the number of bits in a word. Address bus, it carries the address of main memory location from where the data can be accessed. It carries the address of main memory location from where the data can be accessed. This is what the address bus is for carrying the address signals. To control bus for direction of the control signals. Direction of air transfer and coordinate the timing of the events. So this is what we call as the control bus. And we know this the basic definitions. Program counter, it holds the address of next instruction. Instruction register holds the executing instruction. Instruction cache. So cache memory is the fast memory. The next instruction comes from the register. Register file contains 32 registers. Arithmetic and logic unit. It performs all arithmetic operations. Data cache. Data set read from or written to the fast memory. Multiplexer selects one output based upon the control signal. Single cycle data path. Each instruction executes in one clock cycle. This is what single cycle data path is. We also have multiple cycle data path. It takes multiple clock cycles. That instruction takes multiple clock cycles to execute. In single cycle data path, every cycle must be equal length. So here the cycle time should be long enough to accommodate the longest instruction. That should be the case in single cycle data path. In multi-cycle data path, we have the cycle time which has to be coincide with the instruction stage time. Cycle time is 2 nanoseconds. So this is the time of the longest stage. So between the stages, right? We need registers to hold the data for the next stage. We need some temporary registers which can store the data for the next stage. So an example for the arithmetic and logic unit is given. Right. Also, we have the accumulator. Right. We know no accumulator. It is one of the. It is a special register. It is one of the input to the ALU. And one more feature is output of ALU is stored back in accumulator. There are multiple registers. In the previous case, you'll be having data directly given. So here you'll be using multiple registers. One is accumulator. The other one is registers. Inputs are given. The result is again stored in the accumulator. Just an example for that is given. Then in the instruction path, the other one is instruction path, right? First is data path, next is instruction path. So here you have the program counter, instruction register, relationship to data path. The program counter, we know it keeps track of the program execution. So it also has the address of next instruction to be executed or next instruction where the next instruction should be read. It will have the memory address. So automatically it is incremented. Instruction register, current instruction address is there in the instruction register. That includes ALU operation and address of operand. So this will be holding the target of jump instruction. So here we will be having the immediate operand. Relationship to data path. So here the program counter may be incremented through ALU. Content of instruction register may also be required as input to ALU. Right? Take this next question, which is asked in the previous question papers. The amount of ROM needed to implement a 4-bit multiplier is. So here amount of ROM memory location which is needed to implement a 4-bit multiplier is. So we are in need of 2 kilobytes of 2 kilobits of ROM is required to multiply a 4-bit multiplier. Because 4-bit multiplier means 4-bit and the 4-bit you will be getting 16-bit location. So here we are in need of 2 kilobits of memory. A CPU generally handles an interrupt by executing an interrupt service routine. So this is the question and the options are a CPU generally handles an interrupt by executing an interrupt service routine. So this statement is given and the options given are as soon as an interrupt is raised. Otherwise, by checking the interrupt register at the end of its cycle. By checking the interrupt register after finishing the execution of the current instruction. By checking the interrupt register at fixed time intervals. So, in what way a CPU handles the interrupt? By executing the interrupt service routine. So, always keep it in mind if the interrupt occurs in between execution of a program or instruction, what will happen? So it will handle the interrupt by executing the interrupt service routine after finishing the execution of the current instruction. So whatever the instruction now it is executing. So after completing that only it will respond for the interrupts. Alright. So that particular current instruction will be executed and then before going to the next step it will respond for the interrupts. So let's keep this in mind. Only after execution of the current instruction will respond for the interrupts. For example, if I'm saying something to you, if some person is coming and standing outside and asking me something means, then after completing that sentence, whatever I'm taking, I have to complete it and then I have to move. Then only again I have to come back. I will be coming back and start saying you from the next step. Right? If I leave it in between means, right, the system leave that instruction in between means again it cannot come back to that particular line. Right, it will be missing that line. So current instruction will be executed and then it will be coming. It will be responding for the interrupts which occurs. So keep this in mind. Here, the other question is Which of the following is true of the auto increment addressing mode? First statement is it is useful in creating self-relocating code. If it is included in an instruction set architecture, then the additional ALU is required for effective address calculation. The amount of increment depends on the size of data item accessed. So what is the question given is, which of the following statement is true? The auto increment mode addressing. Alright, it is useful in creating self-relocating code. It is included in the instruction set architecture. Then an additional ALU is required for effective address calculation. The amount of increment depends on the size of the data item accessed. So in auto increment addressing mode, what is the benefit is, whatever the data which we are going to pass, depending upon the size of the data, automatically the memory locations will be increased. So this is what the benefit of auto increment addressing mode. So here the answer is only statement C, option 3. That is statement 3 alone is right. Okay, so here in this auto increment addressing mode, the amount of increment depends on size of data item is accessed. Depending upon the size of the data, memory location will be increased. So the next question is the use of multiple register windows with overlap causes a reduction in the number of memory access for. The use of multiple register windows with overlap causes a reduction in the number of memory access for. The options given are function locals and parameters, register saves and restores, instruction fetches. So here the options given are first statement alone, second alone, third alone, and all the three. So always keep it in mind, multiple register windows with overlap. That causes a reduction in the number of memory access because it saves, registers, and it restores. So the option B, statement 2 alone is right because that register saves and restores. So here match this other question is match each of the high level language statements given on the left hand side with the most natural addressing mode from those listed in the right hand side. Right? A1 is equal to Bj. B, there is A brackets, in brackets you are having 1 and B in brackets you are having J. Right? So next statement is while star of A plus plus. The other statement is int temp equal to star x. So three statements are given. You're supposed to match it with the right side column data, which is indirect addressing, indexed addressing, auto increment. So by default, we can find no. Second one is auto increment. So for 2, the option is C. You can just find it out. Similarly, for first case, A1 is equal to B in brackets J. So I can say this is an example for indexed addressing. Right, this is an example for index addressing. Second one is for first one the option is B, for second one the option is C. For third one int temp equal to star x. So this is an example for indirect addressing. This is what given here. You can check it out. right? It's a list, and here indexing is used. So it is index addressing mode. Auto increment is used. So the memory locations are automatically incremented here in this step. This is an example for indirect addressing. So here temp is assigned to the value of int type stored at the address content in X. So here int temp. So the value for this temp is stored in the address location which is there in the X given in X. This is an example for indirect addressing. So I can say the option C, that is for 1 it is B, for 2 it is C, and for 3 it is A. So this is what right. So we can say this is auto increment and this is indirect and this is index addressing. To see this, first, the machine has a 32-bit architecture with one word long instruction. It has 64 registers, each of which is 30-bit long. So here machine has 32-bit architecture, right, with one word long instructions. It has 64 registers, each of which is 30-bit long. It needs to support 45 instructions, which have an immediate operand in addition to 2 register operands. So it has 64 registers, each register, each of which is 30-bit long. Each register is of 30-bit long. Okay. It needs to support 45 instructions, which have an immediate operand in addition to 2 register operands. So an immediate operand is there, and you have 2 register operands. Assuming that the immediate operand is an unsigned integer, the maximum value of the immediate operand is. So now we are supposed to find the value of the immediate operand. What can be the value? Right, so what is given? One word we know it is 30 bits. One word long, so it is 30 bit. It is given there. So each instruction has 30 bits. So to support 45 instructions, so here you are having 45 instructions. The opcode contains 6 bits. So how many registers are there? 2 register operands are there. An immediate operand. In addition to that, you have 2 register operands. So register operand 1 requires 6 bits. Register operand 2 requires 6 bits. The number of total registers is 64, right? So since the total registers is 64, we require 6 bits for the register operands. So on the whole, totally you are in need of 18 bits. So 6 bits for the opcode, 6 6 bits for operand 1, 6 bits for operand 2. So right, so for this immediate operand, what should be the value you are supposed to find? So total 18 bits is required for all the 45 instructions. So here the word size is 30 bits, we know. So 32 minus 18. So 18 is 6 plus 6 plus 6. One register operand, 2 register operands require 12 bits. 12 plus the opcode 6 bits will be requiring 18 bits. So 32 minus 18 is 14. Alright. So 14. So 14 bits are left over for immediate operand. So with this we can say what should be the value given. The maximum value which can be given is 2 power 14 minus 1. So 2 power 14 minus 1 you will be getting 16383. So the 2 power 14 is 16384. So this is the maximum value we can load. Since we are having 14 locations, so we know now 14 bits. For 3 bits, the maximum value is 8. For 4 bits, the maximum value is 16. In the similar way, so we are finding it 2 power n. Right? So 2 power n. So here it is 14. So 2 power 14 is 16384 minus 1. So that should be the maximum value because it starts from 0, right? So 0 to 16383. Otherwise, I can say the maximum number of locations is 16384. Since it is starting from 0, we are reducing 1. The maximum value which can be given for the immediate operand is 16383. That is the answer. Alright, so with this we'll be stopping. The rest we'll be seeing in the next class. Thank you, students. If you have any doubts, you can ask.